Back in the day, when the internet was still something unfamiliar, people used a small device called a modem to connect their computers to the world. Every time it made that screeching sound, you knew the signal was running, and the whole family had to wait, since there was only one connection for everyone. Over the years, modems got smaller, faster, more stable, and eventually became a familiar part of every household. During wartime, similar technology was used to send messages and encrypt data, keeping communication safe between units. When you think about it, something as simple as a modem actually carries a whole history of connection and communication. But anyway, today I'm not here to talk about the past. This video is to show you a little trick to reuse that old or broken modem you might have forgotten somewhere in a drawer or corner. Of course, it won't be like when it was brand new, but with this trick, you can still make it useful one more time, saving a bit of money and having some fun while you're at it. Alright then, let's get started. This is just a regular SIM card, but today I'm going to repurpose it to replace the damaged circuit part of the modem. The first step, and also the simplest one, is to take a small knife and gently scrape the metal surface of the SIM card, so it's a bit rougher. That way, it'll be easier for the solder to stick later. Now, some of you might wonder, why use a SIM card? Well, a SIM has a thin metal layer that conducts electricity. It's heat resistant and it holds solder quite well. So in situations where you need a quick, small circuit replacement, it's actually a pretty practical and convenient option. And once the surface has been scraped, we'll secure the SIM card directly onto the modem circuit using hot glue. This way, it stays firm, insulated, and if we ever need to remove it later, it's still manageable. The key is to stick in the right spot, because even a small misalignment can cause the connections not to work properly when we start soldering. Actually, you can replace the SIM card with other cheap materials that work almost just as well, like a small piece of metal, some copper from an old cable, or even the copper sheet inside a dead battery. Just use what you've got on hand. As for this old SIM card I'm using, well, I picked it up off the street, so it didn't cost me a single penny. When it comes to repurposing stuff, free and effective is always the best combo. Now I'm going to do a small but important step. First, I'll take a bit of soldering flux and gently apply it onto the metal surface of the SIM card. This helps clean the surface so the solder sticks better later on, and the joints turn out smoother and stronger. A lot of beginners skip this step, but it actually saves you a lot of trouble down the line. Once the flux is applied, I'll use some solder wire, touching lightly on each of the four corners to make 4 small solder joints. Take it slow. You don't need much, just enough to hold the wires firmly when we connect them later. Next, we'll take the 2 original antenna wires from the modem and solder their ends onto any 2 of the 4 solder points on the SIM card. Just pick whichever points are convenient. What matters is that the joints are solid and not touching each other. When soldering, move fairly quickly, because too much heat can melt the glue or lift the metal layer off the SIM. Keep a steady hand and it'll be fine. These are 2 single-core wires I prepared earlier. I'll solder them onto the SIM card to extend the distance, making it easier to connect later with the coaxial cable. Now, I know some of you might wonder, why not just solder the coaxial cable directly onto the SIM card? Well, that would be faster, sure, but the joints wouldn't last long because the metal surface on the SIM is very small. It could peel off or break easily. So using these short wires in between makes the setup much neater and a lot safer. Before soldering the coaxial cable to the remaining ends of the wires, I'll route the 2 wires out to the front cover of the modem, then put the cover back in its original position. This keeps things neat, ensures the cover fits properly, and makes it much easier to solder the coaxial cable later, without getting in the way. The step to connect the coaxial cable is also simple. Take one end of the coaxial cable and solder it to the 2 remaining wires first. As for the other end of the coaxial cable, we'll leave it for later. Take it slow. Don't rush. Just make sure the joints are solid and the wires aren't twisted. To make the electrical connections neater, I recommend using heat shrink tubing. It not only insulates the wires, but also keeps them secured, makes the solder joints look clean, and adds durability for long-term use. For the other end of the coaxial cable, I'll attach a straight F connector and a 90-degree F connector. The idea is that this end can connect directly to the TV later. This setup is convenient and flexible, so any TV can easily receive the signal. And that's it. All the steps are complete. Now I'm going to take it out and test it right away to see if the signal works and whether this trick of repurposing an old modem really does the job. At the moment, I haven't connected it to the TV yet, so there's no signal on the screen. Don't rush. This is just a step to make sure everything is properly set up and clean before I start the actual connection. In just 4 seconds, the screen started to display something. But we're not jumping to conclusions yet, because the signal can fluctuate at first. So for now, we'll wait a bit to see if the results stabilize before continuing. So far, I haven't noticed any signal issues. But to be safe, I'm going to go behind the TV and unplug the cable, then plug it back in. This checks the connection and makes sure everything is stable before drawing any conclusions. I can conclude that this is a success. The old SIM card, which seemed useless, has now become an important part helping the modem work again. Seeing it in action makes me realize that sometimes small, simple things we think are useless can actually provide unexpected solutions if we use a bit of creativity and skill. I think this also serves as a little lesson on repurposing old items. Just because something seems useless doesn't mean it has no value. Sometimes these little things can save you money, give you some hands-on fun, and even teach you a few tricks along the way. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe so I can share more simple yet surprising tips for reusing old stuff.